John, are we ready?
We are good to go.
All right, so I'm joined today by Krystle Perkins, the project manager for the General Services Department, who has been running the highly successful program to build a Tiger Dam or prevent flooding in Jefferson Chalmers. Councilmember Mary Sheffield, who has been working tirelessly in recent weeks to come up with donations for vulnerable prisoners in the jail and food for our community, and Denise Fair, who's coming off her weekend birthday celebration and is back to work. I know she loves me bringing that up. Let me start with our numbers. We've lost 1,344 Detroiters. Only one of those deaths was yesterday. And again, I will take you through the numbers to see what we're doing. Are we going down from week to week? And again, as you can see, from 255 deaths 5 weeks ago to 169 to 100 to 71 to 42 2 weeks ago, 21 the last 7 days, and at least as of now, last Friday, we still don't have any deaths reported. We're never 100% sure the way some of this reporting filters through. But everything we're doing is continuing to work. A week ago, we extended the fairgrounds testing to every single resident of the city of Detroit. What I'm going to show you now will give you a sense of why I think I've been about the luckiest mayor in the country. There are few places where the citizens have embraced social distancing and masks like the city of Detroit. And so we've now done, we're upwards of 40,000 tests we've done, but I can see every day exactly what's happening. And every day we know what percentage of the people test positive and where they're from. When we started out, we were running testing positive 40 to 50%, everybody who came through the fairgrounds. Back then, we were only testing people with symptoms who had prescriptions. But if you look at basically late April through the first week of May, and about 12% of Detroiters were testing positive, and about 8% of suburbanites who came through the fairgrounds. But an interesting thing has happened, and you see it driving around this city. Detroiters have embraced the distancing. And what we have seen for the last 2 weeks is the rate of infection of Detroiters is now less than that of suburbanites. And so right now what we have is this: about 4% of Detroiters the last 2 weeks who have come through the fairgrounds have tested positive. What I believe that means is, as you go about the city, about 1 in 25 people in this city still have coronavirus today. Now, if you get in a group of 25 with no masks, it won't be 1 in 25, it'll be 5 in 25 or 10 in 25. That's how we got here in the first place. It's about 1 in 20 suburbanites in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. But this will give you a sense of how deep the commitment has been. And if you just drive around the city and drive around the suburbs, you will see with your own eyes Detroiters have embraced distancing and masks at a way that reflects the value that we place on our neighbors' lives. And so now we feel like at the fairgrounds we need to go the next step. We recognize that we're part of a region. It was really important for us to make sure every Detroiter could get tested first. But the fact of the matter is, Detroiters go and visit the suburbs, work in the suburbs, suburbanites work and visit Detroit. We are one region. And unless we beat COVID-19 as a region, we're not really going to wipe it out. And so we've made the decision that starting today, anybody in southeastern Michigan can get a test at the fairgrounds. Don't need a prescription, don't need any money. You can get a free test at the fairgrounds. We want anybody in southeastern Michigan who needs one to come out and get one, but you have to get an appointment. And so if you call 313-230-0505, you will have an appointment in 24 to 48 hours. And we will be out there 6 days a week to test you. If you're a resident of the city of Detroit and you don't have transportation, we will get you a ride. It's a $2 ride in the specially outfitted Honda vans to keep you safe. If you're from the suburbs, you're going to have to arrange your own rides. But Detroiters, the ride service is still there, a $2 ride, and if you don't have the $2, we'll take you anywhere. So there's free transportation available to Detroiters. Suburbanites have to have their own ride, but as of now, the fairgrounds is open to anybody. There is no reason that anybody in southeastern Michigan, whether you have symptoms or not, and I'm going to keep saying this, most of the people with COVID-19 today probably do not have symptoms. It's been spreading because it is spreading from people who don't know they have it. It's why these masks are so important. It's why this national debate is so silly. If you have any regard for your family and your neighbors, you should be wearing a mask. It's to protect them, even if you think that you are healthy. And so I'm glad that we have progressed to the point where we can do that at the fairgrounds, and we can handle 1,200 tests a day. I'm confident we can handle everybody that is scheduled. Normally, at this briefing, I stick pretty much to COVID-19, but there's another disease in this country that's been with us a lot longer than the coronavirus. Last February, a young man by the name of Ahmaud Arbery was jogging in Brunswick, Georgia. He was killed, and for 3 months, the Georgia police and Georgia prosecutors did nothing about it until a video surfaced that forced them to, and that video showed that Mr. Arbery was murdered. And as this country was absorbing those very disturbing images, on Monday, we saw George Floyd, a man in Minneapolis who they said was suspected of being a forager. And we watched the life be choked out of him by a police officer who continued to put his knee on his neck, even when the people around said, "You're choking him." And the claim that the police had made that he said resisted arrest, if you saw the video that was released today from the nearby store, cast serious doubt on whether he put up any resistance at all. And in its own way, a video that was just as chilling came out of New York City in Central Park, where a white woman who had been walking with her dog off the leash, clearly in the wrong, and was politely confronted by a black man, opened her cell phone, called the police and said, "I'm being threatened by an African-American man, please send the police." And she did it in full confidence that because she was a white woman, even though she was lying, that she expected when the police showed up, they would believe her over a black man. If these stories don't break your heart, you're not human. And for anybody who thinks there is not a racial problem in this country, think about the way black men are being treated in these very different parts of the country, Midwest to South to New York. In one case, we watched a man have the life choked out of him by a police officer who was acting with complete indifference to Mr. Floyd's humanity. In another case, the police and prosecutor knew full well what happened and had no intention of charging the white men responsible for gunning Ahmaud Arbery down on a basis that they said he was trespassing. They had no intention of charging. And in one of the most diverse cities in the country, New York, a white woman had no doubt she was going to be believed by the police department over the man who she knew was black. These are issues that we struggle with here in Detroit as well as every other place in the country, and Chief Craig and I spent a lot of long conversations the last few days. He would be here right now, but he's on a large call with a number of young people that he committed to talk about these issues himself. But he's been talking about the fact that when he became a Detroit police officer in 1977 in a largely white department, his first week on the job with a senior white cop, and he was so excited to be sworn in. As a police officer gets in the car and the cop says to him, "Don't talk, don't touch the radio. I don't want you here." Since 1977, Chief Craig has been fighting discrimination in law enforcement. He's really devoted his life to it. And when this last incident occurred, he made sure the video in Minneapolis was circulated all through the department as more training to try to prevent this. And we had a terrible incident in January last year in the 6th precinct where a woman's car was towed and she walked home in the freezing cold, and the officer was so insensitive. Not only did he make just vile racial comments, but he didn't think there was anything wrong with posting them on social media. And the chief went in and restructured everything in that area. It is an ongoing fight. And I said to him, if there's one thing that we could do to be helpful, he said, the same thing you see everywhere in the country. The more that a police department is staffed by people who come from the community, who reflect the community, the fewer of these incidents you have. We're going to be hiring 300 police officers in this city over the next year. And we got folks out here now who may have been furloughed from your job or laid off for your job, who maybe hadn't been thinking about the police department as a career. But if there's something in your heart that says you think you were meant to help people, and that you see everybody as having value, no matter who they are, we're hiring now. And so if you go to joindetroitblue.org, we'd like to see a department that continues to get built from this community. But I just wanted today the Arbery family and the Floyd family to know that we may be a long way away, but the heart of everyone in the city of Detroit is with them right now. As much as we share pain with each other, we also have to take the time to share success. And I want you to get a chance to hear from Krystle Perkins right now, because we have a section of this city that's almost underwater in the far east side, Jefferson-Chalmers, lowest point in the city of Detroit. We've got the highest Great Lakes and Detroit River water levels in 100 years. And that neighborhood was very much at risk of being underwater. And the law says it's the responsibility of the neighbors to build up seawalls at the back of their properties to protect their neighborhood from the flooding. But as we learned last summer, we got 25% of the neighbors who didn't build the appropriate seawalls. And there wasn't time to get them fixed before this spring's flood came. And so with the support of the Army Corps of Engineers, the city moved decisively. As you'll see, it's not the most attractive solution, but if you see the damage being done by flooding in other parts of the state, I think you'll agree that what we did was right. And the woman who's led this highly successful effort from the beginning and is nearing the end, I wanted her to show you what she's done and what your fellow Detroiters have done for the Jefferson-Chalmers neighborhood. With that, I'll turn it over to Krystle Perkins.
Thanks, Mayor. So last year in the Jefferson-Chalmers area, we experienced record level flooding. The streets were covered The city vehicle I drive is a F-350, and the waters were halfway up above the tire on the street of Ashland. So last year, we experienced record level flooding. The NOAA, the National Oceanic Authority, has projected the levels to be even higher this year. And so far this year, we've already seen 8 inches higher in Lake St. Clair than we did in June of last year. Last year, what we did was, along with volunteers from the city of Detroit and the metro area, GSD workers, we filled in place over 400,000 sandbags. We went out here, we spent long days in the hot summer. We went out here 3 different occasions to make sure that we did what we could as a city to help mitigate the flood in this area. This year, we found a better solution. It's still a temporary solution, but it's more long-term than the sandbags. It's a little bit unattractive, but it's a better attraction than the sandbags. We installed a product called Tiger Dams. Now, we installed this product in over 350 residential properties, and then we also have one street that doesn't have any residential properties on it. Their bags are flexible to conform to the different configurations of the yards. There's some right angles we can make to make sure that we are bending and curving around the areas. The neighbors, so far, the residents in this area have seen tremendous difference this year. We had a rough weekend of rain and wind last 2 weekends ago. And what we noticed in this area, that the Tiger Dams are doing what they are supposed to do. We started our project April 9th. We are near 85% completion. We expect to be on the last street, which is Riverside, next week. Residents will see us on Clink Island beginning tomorrow.
All right, and so thank you, Krystle. At first, I was getting some notes from people who didn't like the orange, and then after the dam broke at Midland and the Tiger Dam held in that stormy weekend, everybody texted back and said, this was terrific. And so, Krystle, you and the team have really done a remarkable job. The way we have had to deal with a once-in-a-century pandemic is everybody's had to pitch in. And we've had enormous support from members of Detroit City Council, all of whom have in their own ways contributed. But Mary Sheffield has been relentless in going out and seeking donations. She used to work for the Wayne County Sheriff and had a particular interest in making sure the prisoners and the sheriff's deputies were safe. And she's been making sure that people in this community don't go without food. And she wanted to be here today to thank the donors that she's lined up that have helped so many Detroiters. Councilmember Sheffield.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And good afternoon, everyone. I know this is my first time being here, so I want to first start off by just sending my condolences to every single resident here in the city of Detroit that has been impacted by COVID-19. I think oftentimes we report numbers and we see the data, but we forget that these are our community members. And for me, it did hit home when my father was impacted by this virus. In fact, many of my relatives have been impacted by COVID-19. And so I want to just send my heart and my prayers and condolences to anyone who has been directly impacted by COVID-19. And even in the midst of what we are deeming a crisis, I do believe that there is hope. There is positivity, and there is good things that are coming out of COVID-19. And so as I travel throughout the city of Detroit, I do sometimes see, people who have low spirits, who are, battling mental health, who are, taking this in a very hard way. And so I just want to be a sign of hope to let people know to keep your head up high. We are getting through this together, and I cannot be more proud of the individuals throughout the city of Detroit that I continue to interact with, particularly our first responders, our essential workers, who when I'm in and out of the grocery store, they're asking me, are you okay? Are you safe? Be safe, when in fact we should be telling them to be safe, and we thank them for their service. So I want to also just thank our essential services, our frontline workers who are working in and out every single day to keep us safe, and just to lift them up and say thank you for what they're doing throughout the city of Detroit. I wanted to report on an effort that my office kicked off, which is called Masks for Inmates. We all know that since GM started manufacturing the mask here in Detroit, they've been providing them to the city for quite some time. But we wanted to request a donation specifically for the most vulnerable in Detroit, and that is our inmates throughout the Wayne County Jail. And so we want to thank GM for the partnership. We were able to donate over 7,000 masks to the inmates at all 3 jails. That is the Dickerson facility in Wayne County 1 and 2. We donated over 6,200 gloves and also over 200 face shields for the staff throughout the Wayne County Jail. And this, again, is not to slight or to say they did not have the PPE needed. We just wanted to make sure that they had adequate amount and that they had a sufficient supply just in case they needed extra masks and gloves and PPE. So, again, we would like to thank GM for that effort. And then lastly, we all know that our senior homes have been hit really hard. My district represents the most senior buildings throughout the city of Detroit. And so as we were in and out of the senior buildings, we oftentimes would hear how the seniors did not want to come out for food. And so we kicked off a program that we're actually launching today. And every single week, we're going to identify at least anywhere between 4 to 8 senior buildings. We will be pulling up in a U-Haul truck, and we will be dropping off fresh produce and also frozen meals to our seniors. Hopefully, we'll have anywhere between 200 to 300 boxes per senior building to allow our seniors the comfort of not having to go out if they don't have to. And so I just think it's important that we protect that population as well. They've been hit pretty hard. They are the most vulnerable in the city, and so we are excited to partner with DABO and other organizations to provide meals to our seniors. And we're also encouraging senior buildings to please contact my office if you would like to be put in the queue if there is a need in your building. Our office number is 313-224-4505, and we plan to get to every single building throughout the city of Detroit. Lastly, Mr. Mayor, I do want to thank your leadership. I want to thank the leadership of our Director of Fair and really everyone. I had the opportunity to go to the testing site, and I can say it was very professionally ran. I went one day and didn't feel like I needed to come back because everything was taken care of. And so what we're doing here in Detroit, I think, really sets the tone. I was on a national call with members, elected officials from all over the country, and I was able to see and compare what we're doing on the ground here to other cities. And I can say that I am quite proud of the leadership that we have here in Detroit responding to COVID-19. And before I close, I did want to touch on both George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and echo the sentiments of our mayor, but also say that not only do I think it's important that we hire police force that represents the community, but we also want justice. I think most of us are tired of seeing this. We know that this is going on for quite some time. We want justice. And I'm just going to say that again, we want justice. And I commend every single organization that continues to effort around this issue. It has been ongoing in our community for far too long. It must end. And I'm going to end again by saying we want justice. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having me today.
Thank you, and you're absolutely right. This country needs justice. Councilmember, you're doing a great job, and thank you. Before I turn it over to Denise Fair to give you the statistics, this is the first time we've been here since we lost Fred Westbrook, and it's a reminder that even though the number of deaths have diminished, every one leaves a hole. But Fred Westbrook was the president of the Bus Drivers Union, who brought that union through bankruptcy, fought for them every step of the way, preserved the bus driver's job. I worked with him the first 4 or 5 years, and he had retired and did not get the opportunity to enjoy his retirement the way that he deserved as a result of this terrible disease. And I want the Westbrook family to know that the city of Detroit family is with you, and I know you're planning a funeral as soon as the governor lifts the limits, and if I don't put you over the limit, I will be there. And with that, I'll turn it over to Denise Fair.
Thank you, Mayor. So today we are reporting 10,902 COVID cases and 1,349 deaths from this virus. Now, while our week-to-week data is continuing in the right direction, we must continue to take precautions to protect ourselves against COVID-19. We are continuing to protect our most vulnerable citizens, our seniors. So we are now visiting senior apartments. We've now tested over 2,300 seniors in 36 facilities to date. And the infection rates continue to remain low, now at only 1%. So today we're going to go to 6 senior apartments, and those include Freedom Place Tower, River Towers, Teresa Maxis, University Meadows, and Village of Bethany Manor. So we are scheduling another 30 facilities between now and next Friday. And so if you look on your screen, you'll see that we are going to visit several more, and I'm going to read these. That includes Eden Manor, Evangelical Manor, Friendship Meadows, Garden View Estates. Let me get that slide back up. And if not, that's fine. Garden View Estates on Van Buren, Robert Holmes Teamster Housing, Jennings Senior Living, Camper Stevens, Sheridan Place 1 and 2, Woodbridge Senior Village, including Selden and Tower, Across the Park Apartments, Medical Center Village Senior, Orchestra Place, Philip Simmons, Gateshead Crossing, Oak Village Square Apartments, 8330 on the River, Riverbend Towers, Bellamere Apartment Homes, Forest Park Place, Orchestra Towers, and also Warren West Apartments. So we will be at those apartments over the next week and a half. Now switching gears to nursing homes. So recall that we tested 26 facilities, including about 2,000 nursing home residents in about 10 days. The infection rate was 24%. Since then, we've continued to retest all the 26 facilities, distributing PPE, providing education, and now, as of tomorrow, we would have finished retesting all those 26 facilities, and the infection rate is much lower than it was, about 5 to 10%. COVID-19 is not over yet. We cannot become too relaxed as the summer approaches. We've all heard the stories, and we've seen pictures of large parties and similar gatherings in other cities, which led to spikes in the number of COVID-19 cases. And I do not believe that we want to go backwards on the progress that we've already made in slowing the spread of this virus. So let's continue to be vigilant, and let's commit ourselves and encourage those who we care for, no matter what the weather is, to wear a mask, to wash our hands, to practice social distancing. This is pivotal. And even if you are at the workplace, it's really important to continue these precautions. COVID-19 is real. And we have to deal with the fact that this is our new reality. So let's do what we have to do to stay and remain healthy. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
So one last thing before we take questions, and I just want to thank Elisa Malil, Charity Dean, and the entire team that has run the PPE operation for the business startups. So we opened up for new businesses, or for businesses we're going to reopen on Tuesday. We opened up from 9 to 12 on Memorial Day morning. I didn't know who was going to show up. I went and showed up. 600 businesses came through and picked up their supplies Monday morning, so they'll open on Tuesday. Another 1,100 yesterday, and another 1,000 today. We're going to have 2,000 businesses, almost all of them small businesses across this community, open. And that's going to mean people going back to work. And I believe we are not that far away for seeing some type of limited restaurant opening. All of that depends on what Denise Fair just said, continuing to honor this. When I see groups of 25 and 30 people gathering outside of parties, stores, and gas stations, which we're starting to see a little bit of, if that continues to happen, this virus is going to spike back up, and the governor is going to shut us back down. And so as these businesses reopen, it is all the more important that everyone continue to honor the requirements to wear the masks and keep your distance, and we can start to get people back to work. And with that, we'll take questions.
Mr. Mayor, how would you rate the federal response to the coronavirus pandemic here in Detroit and in the state? And how do you think that the citizens of Detroit rate the federal response?
Well, I take it by agency. I don't see the federal government as a unifying thing. The FDA has been terrific. Dr. Steve Hahn has been enormously helpful in getting our test kits into the country, in getting the Abbott testing sets that we need. Dr. Redfield at the Center for Disease Control embedded a staff of 4 people with the Detroit Health Department. We led the nation in response to getting every single patient in nursing homes tested, and the CDC was a full participant. On the other hand, national messages that are divisive and telling you not to wear masks are enormously damaging. And so with some agencies of the federal government, we've been extremely well supported. I think in other ways, the federal government has not been helpful.
Mayor, we have just a couple of off-topic questions. One from the Detroit Free Press wanting to know if you have any updated response or reaction to the change with former Mayor Kilpatrick, with the news that he's not apparently going to be released from prison.
I don't understand, I don't, there's not much point in this, but how could everybody do all these stories without ever getting a confirmation from the government he was being released? So I don't know any more than what I've read, but as I've said many times, my relationship with Kwame Kilpatrick is personal, it's deep, I'm not objective when it comes to him, and I hope he has an opportunity to contribute to the community. And when that day comes, I'm going to be supportive of him.
Okay, and last set of questions regarding a report from Bloomberg today that a company called Beximo, a face mask producing company, was going to locate in Detroit, and they wanted to know if you were aware of that, if you have thoughts on it.
Nothing happens by accident. So we are recruiting, and I've said this over and over, we're recruiting jobs into this city nonstop. This comes from a process we've been at for more than a year. A fellow from Bangladesh by the name of Mashroof Habib, one of the largest denim clothes manufacturers in Bangladesh, and we have been recruiting him to open a jeans manufacturing site here in the city of Detroit. COVID-19 put a wrinkle in that, but he came together with some partners and said what we need to have manufactured right now is PPE. And so nobody picks Detroit at random. This is a result of Kevin Johnson and the DEGC team and our economic development team. But Mashroof Habib sat in my office for about 2 hours a year or so ago, and he's been texting and calling me, telling me he's coming back. And so I think there is a real opportunity to make clothes in America again. They're virtually all imported. They come from Ethiopia, they come from Sri Lanka, but we've seen this on the medical supplies. When we outsourced our medical supplies to other countries and all of a sudden we're in a pandemic, we're relying on other people to make what we need. And I think it's time we start to make clothes back in the United States, and we've been working on that for the last year or two. And I didn't expect that PPE would be the first plant that comes, but we're working on finding a site right now, and we're really glad to have an investment from really a fine international company.
Great. And one follow-up from Channel 7 on that same subject. Apparently, Beximo said that affordability and diversity among residents in and around Detroit were a couple of key considerations, and wanted to get your thoughts in terms of what you saw as Detroit's strengths in this process.
So I don't want to say too much, but all of the international clothes manufacturers, every label that you wear or that you know, is looking at this question of can they make clothes in America. And I have pitched them on the fact that we have a lot of folks out of work who are hardworking people by nature, willing to learn new skills, and would do a great job. And I have been pitching Detroit as a potential national center for making clothes in the United States. And so obviously that pitch, I knew with Mr. Habib, we had convinced him when he was going to make his jeans. If this is the first one that comes here, and we do this is the reason that Fiat Chrysler came to Detroit for 5,000 jobs instead of going to Alabama, is we've got hardworking people who are ready to go to work, And I think this is the right place. If you're going to make things, Detroit is where you ought to come.
All right, that's the last
All right.
question.
Thank you all very much.